What are the photo camera settings for hybrid shooting, photography and video? I will show you the general settings that are basically the same across all brands. The names of the settings may differ per brand, and if your camera doesn't have a specific setting, don't worry. I was shooting hybrid in 2010 with a dinosaur and I still got great shots. I will use my Canon R5 Mark II as an example to show you the settings I use because it's a purpose-built hybrid camera. I think it has all the settings you need as a hybrid shooter. So let us start with the file handling. C-RAW, also known as compressed RAW or Canon RAW, is a light version of RAW. I don't know if Canon means compressed RAW or Canon RAW. I guess compressed RAW. Sony, Fuji and Nikon also offer lossless compressed RAWs. Just like Canon, they have a solution for a lighter version of your RAW. And why is that? Well, cameras produce bigger and bigger files. A lighter version is easier to manage, especially when shooting photo and video. You generate a lot of data, like I said before, and it's just easier for the camera to write those files on a regular memory card. Another important reason is buffer problems. When shooting in burst mode, you can shoot up to 30 or 35 photos per second. If those files are very large, the buffer fills up very quickly. If you then switch to video, you can run into problems. Your camera isn't ready to shoot video because it's still processing the photos. That is why compressed RAW works very well. I've been using it for 2 years right now and I have never had any issues with my RAW files. Yes, I could see a difference when I zoom in Lightroom between a normal RAW file and a C-RAW file, but in real world use, nobody notices the difference. Even photographers don't notice the difference. The next important thing is where are you storing your photos in camera. If your camera has 2 memory card slots, like I think you should have if you're shooting hybrid, I always choose both cards. No matter what, safety and file security always are #1 priority. So which camera mode do I use for hybrid shooting? Let us break it down into 3 most used modes: manual mode, AV mode and programmable mode. Manual mode is the best option if you want the full control. I use manual mode when the light conditions are good and when I'm not in a rush. Manual mode allows maximum creativity, but there's a downside. When shooting hybrid, it takes more time to set it up. Even as an experienced photographer, it takes time to dial into the correct exposure. At weddings, light conditions can change in an instant. If you combine this with video, you can end up chasing your own settings instead of controlling the light. That's why I only use manual when I know the light conditions are very stable and there's no pressure on me to make a certain shot. So what is the other option? Well, that's AV mode. AV mode is not what many people think it is. It's often seen as a fully automatic mode used by people who don't know how to photograph. But AV mode is programmable. It differs per camera, but this is how I set up mine. I use auto ISO with a maximum of 6400 ISO. My exposure meter is always 1 stop below, so below 0. Sometimes 1 stop and a half. Well, you can't go in a half, but 1 stop and a third or 1 stop and 2/3, because a stop is 3 steps. My shutter speed cannot go below 1/125 and it can go as high as needed. Because when I'm shooting manual, my shutter speed is almost always 1/125, so this matches perfectly in AV mode. The camera prefers the lowest shutter speed as possible when in AV mode, so because it can't adjust my shutter speed lower, it will adjust my ISO. And if you combine that with a variable ND filter, I got a very solid base to shoot photos. And that means I shoot very close to how I would shoot manually. But if there's a sudden bright light, the shutter speed increases and saves the image. The aperture is manual in AV mode, so I set it exactly to how I want it to be. This way I can rely on the camera still to stay consistent when switching to video and back to photo. I've made a very detailed video about using AV mode, and if you're interested in that, go to the description below. You can find a full video about why I think AV mode is just awesome. The last mode is programmable mode, or C mode on Canon. This differs per camera, but most cameras have 1, 2 or 3 programmable slots. These allow you to store pre-programmed settings for specific situations. The usual workflow is this. Set your camera in manual mode, dial in the settings you want to use, go to the menu for the programmable modes, start in program 1, 2 or 3. When you switch to that mode, everything is instantly set in that setting. For example, when I shoot group photos, I set my camera to a shutter speed of 1/250, aperture mode about f9, ISO auto. When I switch to that program, my camera is instantly set up for group photos. Because I know the photos will be consistent and safe. And a pro tip, always make sure your camera does not suffer from buffer problems. Because if you do, look into faster memory cards or adjust the settings.